When I was a child, I remember there was a commercial that would come on television of a young man sitting in his room, probably a teenager, and he was unfortunately participating in some drug activity. Well, wouldn't you know it, his father burst through the door, and when he saw what his son was doing, he lost it. He began yelling and asking him questions. Where'd you get that from? Why are you doing it? But one of the most pertinent questions he asked, where did you learn to do this? To which the young man turned to his father in tears, looked at him and said, I learned it by watching you. It was an amazing commercial for me as a child that I didn't quite understand, but now as an adult, raising my own children, I actually get it now. Stay with us as we talk more about how important it is that by beholding, we do become changed.
Hello and welcome back to When We Talk. I'm Stephen Conway and this is my lovely wife,
Hello.
Tamara. We're so glad that you've joined us today because when we talk, we are in process.
Yes, and when we talk, you're bound to learn something.
And when we talk, we grow.
Yes, and literally, most importantly, I hope when we talk, we heal.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Today's title is Seen But Not Heard. Seen but not heard. When I was a little boy, I used to throw tennis balls up against the wall or basketballs, and when I would throw them up against the wall, they would always come back. And there's a statement or a saying about children and their resilience. How does that go, Tamara?
Oh, yeah, that children, don't worry about the children. Children always bounce back, right? Yeah.
Just like a tennis ball.
Just like a tennis ball, but that actually is a myth. It is not true. Yeah, yeah.
So while children may heal faster, their bones on a physical level may heal faster than those of us who are a little bit older.
Yes.
The reality is that we can't overlook things that children experience, thinking they won't remember, it's not going to bother them, or they'll just get over it. Because the truth is they are affected.
Yes, children are affected. And before we move forward, just to kind of recap and give you an idea of where we're going with this, we've talked about grief before, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that we've talked about in the realms of grief, we said that grief is what?
It's normal and natural.
Yes, a normal and natural reaction to loss of any kind. We also talked about previously that there are myths, much like the one we just talked about. You know, children bounce back, don't worry about them, right? There are myths that we all pick up throughout our lifetime that are told to us, or we just kind of understand, right? That there are things that aren't true necessarily about how to deal with grief, okay? There are more than 40 types of losses that people can experience throughout an entire lifetime, which is a lot, you know. We also learned that actually change is synonymous with grief. Now that's amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And that people who are grieving are not broken, right? They don't need to be fixed, but they do need to be heard, all right? Now, we also discussed why grief is uncomfortable, and what are some of the reasons why we stated that grief is uncomfortable for us?
Well, even though it's natural, it doesn't feel good when we're grieving.
Yeah.
And of course, when there's a loss involved, we don't know how to process the experience of a loss. And also, sometimes the people around us can complicate our losses as well by the things that they say. So it's not always that I don't want to grieve or I'm uncomfortable grieving, but people tell me I shouldn't.
Wow.
Don't cry.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So people can complicate the process of grieving. Now, children, right? When we're growing up, we are watching. We watch everything. We're listening. Even when you don't think Your kids are listening?
Yes.
I remember we've had those experiences. We have 4 children, and I can't tell you sometimes, that the proverbial thing when they get into Sabbath school classroom, right? And they're talking and sharing, my mom and dad said, right? Or, and you're just like sitting there as a parent like, oh my goodness, no, Johnny didn't just say, So children are listening. Children are watching, even when you think they are not, right?
And they have to, because when we think about the miracle that is birth and childhood, which, by the way, all of us have experienced. We've all been children. We've all been born and had to grow up. We're interpreters. It's the way we learn how to talk. It's the way we learn what is appropriate, what's inappropriate. Is we're watching, we're listening, we're learning, and we are interpreting.
Yeah. So you mentioned something earlier about some of the early messages that we pick up as children, and maybe you're familiar with this message, okay? Which is, stop crying, right? Don't cry. It's okay. Don't cry. I love how you share the story of how we deal with that. When children are playing on the playground, the boys and how they deal with it versus the girls. Can you share?
Right. Yeah, when the boys have a scrape, it's like, man up, brush it off, bandage it. I mean, you got a bone protruding from your leg, but you'll be okay. Don't worry about it, right?
Yeah.
Little girls may be a little bit different depending on what the situation or the circumstances are.
Yeah.
But I was thinking another one that's that we often, or at least I heard, stop crying before I give you something to cry for.
Have mercy,
right? I mean,
yes.
Oh, mercy. How many times have I had $1 for every time I heard that one? But all of these things complicate the experience, as though a child can actually stop the physical pain that they're going through.
Yeah.
The reality is they can't.
Yeah. Have you ever lost something as a kid? Like maybe an item, I know you talk about when you guys were moving, right?
Yeah, we moved a lot when I was growing up, and that was one of the reasons why I hated moving.
Yeah. Is
because I never seemed to have the same stuff when we landed at whatever our destination was that I had when we left.
Yeah.
So I used to have these toys, and I remember one time somebody broke into our apartment, and I brushed past my mom and dad, and I ran, I darted, I dived on the floor and looked up under my bunk bed, and I was like, whew, and I got up, I said, hey, everybody, everything's okay. They didn't take the most valuable things that were here. And everybody was like, what? I had these little Voltron lions. They were toys, and they were still there under my bed. And so I was like, whew, man, I'm
so
glad
never
we're
mind
all right.
everything else.
Never mind, everything else is
Those...
disheveled, thrown around, and whatnot. What was important to me. But so often when we would move, I would lose toys. I would lose things that were precious, little items that I had that were precious to me.
Yeah.
But they were gone. I remember one time when we were in the process of cleaning up the house.
Yeah.
And one of our daughters, our youngest daughter, came downstairs. And there was a stuffed little dolphin that was in the trash can.
Now that dolphin, let me just say this, Saints. It was a raggedy looking thing. Like, who wants that?
But I remember our daughter came downstairs and she seen it in the trash can, and she was like, who threw my dolphin away? I can't. And she just started to really go and cry. And my wife was like, you haven't even seen this thing was buried under something, and so forth and so on. And what our daughter did, it opened our eyes.
Yes.
She remembered who gave her the dolphin. She remembered the event that she was given the dolphin. She remembered how long she had had it.
Yeah.
So she had memories and emotions and everything that were attached to this gift that her grandmother had given her. For us, we're like, oh, it's been sitting there for
Surely
a year or two. Surely
yeah.
you don't want this. Let's throw it away.
Yeah.
How many times do you think that children have gone through something like that, where their parents tell them, you don't need this, get rid of it? But there is some sort of emotional attachment that they have. It's important to them.
Yeah.
But as the saying goes, hence the title of our episode today, children should be seen and not heard. And the thought process is behind that, the quieter and more well-behaved our children are, the better parents we are.
Woo. Yeah.
So check this out. So I'm parenting so that I can look good, not so that my child can actually be whole and healthy.
Have mercy. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a lot, you know, as a parent. And listen, I know there are times when I've literally been on my knees and I've been in the midst of failing. Can I say that as a parent? Literally been in the midst of failing, watching the failing happening while I'm parenting, and I'm just like, oh. But I'm thankful because just because that happens, by the grace and power of God, we can change. You know,
Yes.
we can change. We can do better.
Yeah.
Another one of the things that I thought was very powerful in the realms of children and loss, pets.
Yes.
Ah, that's interesting.
Oh, may the Lord in heaven please forgive me.
He's talking about himself, saints, because
I
he has
have
a story.
I've not really been a pet person.
Yeah.
I didn't really want our family to have pets.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I was against them, but yeah, another mouth to feed, another person to clean up after. And so I wasn't always in favor, but then when my children got the pets,
Yeah.
they chewed through my computer cord.
Well,
it was not a good thing.
things happen in life.
And I remember we were moving.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go again. We were moving.
Yeah.
And we had a guinea pig.
We did.
And
Penny was her name, in fact. She had a
Penny
name.
was her name.
Yes.
And again, pray for me, folks. But we ended up giving her away because the place we were moving, we were not going to be able to take a pet with us. And
it was a clandestine move.
It was not a
we met at a dark
clandestine
gas
move.
station.
No, we didn't.
One night
No, we
with a
didn't.
Bible worker who
No.
had a guinea pig farm and who would take her.
No, it's not true. But I was, I wasn't sympathetic to what my children were going through because this was one of their first real pets. And, I was eager to get rid of the guinea pig. And I would say, don't worry, Penny's in a better place.
Oh.
And then we would just, every time they would mention her, I would say, oh, she's in a better place.
Living her best life.
Yeah, and just completely unsympathetic for the attachment that my children developed for this pet.
Yeah, I had a similar experience not too long ago. We had a beautiful little bunny rabbit, a giant Flemish rabbit, and a similar situation. We're going to talk more about this moving thing, right? We're a pastoral family, ministry family, people who are movers, maybe missionaries. Maybe that's some of you who are watching, and that happens a lot. You find yourself going from place to place. You don't stay many places too long. And but this time around, we were getting ready to move recently, and we had finally acquired a pet, and they loved her, but we could not take her where we were going. And I'm thankful because the Lord taught me a lesson as well through this process. That before that happened, I had a chance to have a conversation with the children, because normally I'm like, we gotta go, give the pet away, right? But no, I had an opportunity to actually sit down and have a clearing conversation with my children, letting them know ahead of time, what was gonna get ready to take place, And that's one aspect. And then there's pet death.
Yes.
Children losing pets, and unfortunately, one of the remedies, what do we normally say?
Replace the loss.
Yeah, I'll get you another dog, I'll get you another bird, I'll get you another cat, right? But that actually isn't the best response. Why is that?
Well, because you can't replace, Grover or Ruff or whatever your animal's name, Penny, you can't replace, Mark Finley, the goldfish.
I know, it was a goldfish, Saints. I've already apologized for that, okay?
Yeah, you can't replace, you can't replace people. You can't replace pets.
Yeah.
And the attempt to do so, it's actually something that we refer to as coping. It's a coping mechanism. Now, it's interesting, we're talking about children and pets.
Yeah.
But when we teach our children after losing a pet that they can just replace that loss, this is something that sticks deep inside. And so when I get into my 20s or 30s and I have a marriage or a relationship that doesn't work out, well, I already know what to do to move on. Replace the loss.
Wow.
Get another marriage.
Yeah.
Get another relationship.
Yeah.
Just do what I've always been taught that I should do.
Yeah.
And it's not that as parents that we have specifically told our children to replace the loss, but we've modeled this to them in our attempts to help them to deal with something that they are grieving over. We've taught them how to cope instead of teaching them how to heal.
Here's another one. Be a big boy, be a big girl now, right? This message of being strong. Be strong, Yeah, daddy's gone, be strong. Mommy's gone, be strong, right? Or
so many times I've heard that when we're at funerals, maybe the oldest child, people who are, again, well-meaning,
Yeah.
hey, you got to be strong for the rest of your family.
Wow.
You got to be strong for your brothers and your sisters. Everybody's looking up to you now.
that's a heavy burden, to have the message said that you can't grieve, right? Because you have to be strong while everyone else is grieving. When do you get a chance to grieve, right? And for a lot of people, there are people probably you're watching today. You've never had an opportunity to actually really grieve because you've been trying to be present for everyone else and maybe prevent the grieving process for everyone else and be that strong person. But listen, it is okay to grieve, and that is a myth to be strong, okay? It's so many different things. Keep busy.
Yeah.
Keep busy. Now, this is what I want to say about this myth, keeping busy. You and I both have worked at boarding academies before. And I have to say, one of the things that was very shocking for me or
Painful.
it was painful to watch were children who were sent away to boarding academies so that the parents could get a divorce. And we're going to talk more about this divorce thing in our later episode, but that was painful. The idea of keeping busy is if you send them away, right, get them busy in sports, get them busy in school, get them away from what's happening, that will solve the problem.
No, but it doesn't, because again, children are observant and they are interpreters. Even though they may not know exactly what's going on, believe me, my friends, they know something is going on. They can sense when the atmosphere is different in the home. They can tell when there is frustration or angst or whatnot that's going on in a relationship.
Yeah.
They can pick up on these things. And what's so unfortunate is when we don't talk,
Yes. Yes.
what children do, because we are selfish creatures, is children will internalize what's going on.
Yeah.
This must mean that I've done something or I'm doing something. The reason why there's tension in the house or tension in the home is because of something that is wrong with me.
Yeah. A question here is, how have our children seen us process? I'll be honest, I am a person that sometimes shuts down, right? I'll get quiet and won't talk. There are times when I will do things. My daughter often tells me, I know when you're not feeling your best. Why? Because you can start cleaning. And maybe some of you do that, right? When I'm worried or I have something going on, I'll start cleaning and trying to fix things, And, I hate to say it, I've even lashed out sometimes. I've gotten upset, going through a grieving process or loss or worry.
Yeah, for me, I detach. I tend to detach and I want to be by myself. So I'm not, this is when we talk, but unfortunately, I don't always talk and communicate with my family and with the people that I'm in relationship with about the things that are going on and how those things are affecting me. The tendency is to draw away and just be by myself and try to process on my own. So unfortunately, that's one of the things that I have modeled for our children.
Yeah, that's another message, one of those myths, cry alone, go to your room and cry. I don't want to hear that, I don't want to see that. That's that grieve alone is what it's called, Now, so I like something you talked about earlier, that there's a difference between coping and healing. And for all intents and purposes, we have celebrated coping, right? Who hasn't been through some things like, man, I'm just trying to get through this, One of the definitions for coping is muddle through, right? Another one is keep one's head above the water. Now, I don't know if you've ever, because I don't swim that well, but I don't know if you ever tried to do that. It's a lot of work, trying to keep your head above water while also sinking, So imagine coping, right? I'm just trying to survive and make it through. But God doesn't just want us to cope, right?
Right. Yeah, I like that. You mentioned the word, you linked the words coping and survival together. And I think that's a wonderful match. I mean, it's not a wonderful match, but it is a match nonetheless. Coping and survival. What we want to experience and the benefit of when we talk
Yeah.
is that we can go from coping to healing. We can go from surviving to thriving.
Yes.
Right? We
Yeah.
can experience something that's much different than just fighting to stay above water.
Yeah.
Right? We
Yeah.
can actually experience making progress.
Yes, yes. This idea that time heals, right? Time heals all wounds. Time has never healed anything, okay? It has never, because time does not have hands. It does not have, well, if you're looking at a clock. Anyway, I digress. But it cannot physically do anything for you. What actually heals, right? Healing. The wound has to be cleaned out. It has to be addressed. You have to look at it, open it up, see what's there. If there's something impeding the process of healing, clean it, then close it back up and watch the process of healing take place. And this is what lets you know when you're healed. When you can touch that thing,
Yeah.
when you can touch it, there's a scar there, but when you can touch it,
Or someone
no
else
pain.
can touch it.
Yes.
Someone else can touch it.
Yeah.
You know how it's like, oh man, I'm okay. How's that? You just had surgery. Oh, I'm fine. I'm back to work already. And then somebody goes to pat you on the shoulder, and you're like, oh, grimacing in pain. Like, what did you do that for?
Yeah.
Well, you just told me that everything was okay.
Yes.
So we can know that the healing has not, been to the level that it should be.
Yes.
When another person touches or stumbles upon that place in our lives, and it still has the same pain as when we first received the wound or the loss.
Yeah. So here we are. How do we deal with this? Because grief is normal and natural. You're not going to be able to stop it from happening. You're not going to be able to prevent change from happening. Our children are going to experience it. So how do we help our children, right? One of the things I think is so important, and I think maybe you could talk a little bit about this, is modeling openness, modeling it.
Yeah, just you gonna throw that my way after I said that I just do a horrible job at it. When
It's growth. This is growth, sir.
withdraw and
Growth.
whatnot. No, but one of the things that we've experienced, as my wife mentioned, as a ministry family, is we move from place to place.
Yeah.
And it was just the grace of God. I can't even say that I knew this, and that's the reason I did it. No, that's not the case.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we decided to do was to involve our children in the process.
Yeah.
So if we received an invitation or a call to move from one place to another, we would all sit down as a family and we would have a discussion. Yeah. What do you think about moving this? What are some of the challenges that this move would bring about? What are some of the changes that we would be faced with? And, what would be most difficult for you? And ultimately, how would you feel about making a move like this? And we haven't always received or answered every invitation, but our family has had several discussions about them. So in doing that, what we've tried to do is prepare them for what they're getting ready to experience.
Yeah. So this whole thing, again, seen, not heard. No, children do need to be heard, right? And they are a part of the family. They are part of the process. And when we treat children as though they're just baggage that we carry along the way, that is sending the wrong message to them. So invite them into the process, be willing to have the conversation, and be vulnerable as a parent to know that sometimes they don't agree with our decisions. It doesn't mean that them not agreeing will change the decision, but they are allowed, right, to have an opinion about.
Well, they should be.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fascinating to me that we don't talk to our children, but then when they become teenagers and young adults, we wonder why they don't talk to us.
What's wrong, sweetie?
Nothing.
They won't talk to me. Why won't they talk to me?
How many, I can't tell you how many parents I've heard that from. Like, I don't know what they're going through. They don't say anything to me.
Yeah.
It's because we've taught them that children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
And as a result, they are living that out.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more dangerous than, young men and young women facing difficult choices.
Yes.
And not having a sense that they can actually talk to the people who love and have invested the most in them.
Yeah, Absolutely. So again, some of the things that we can do to help the process is to prep them, right? When you know change is coming, talk to them about it before it happens. Don't wait until it happens as far as possible, right? We know that there are exceptions. I know somebody's watching this and saying, well, that's not my situation. And you know what? We get it. But where as far as possible, have the prep talk, right? Involve them in the process as well. Maybe have a time where the little ones can write down some of the questions they would have or draw pictures about how this process will impact them. And then helping them to bring the loss to completion. This is something I want us to remember. Don't get so busy in the process that you forget to process, right? We can get so busy packing and got to get things done that we haven't sat down ourselves and actually process through.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's so very important for us to go through that. That we can get so busy in the process that we forget to process.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. So listen, we want to make sure that you are aware that you're not alone. Parents, grandparents, raising children, you're not alone in the process. Remember, God is walking with you through this, and He's going to help us to be able to help our children to heal.
Now you can watch episodes of When We Talk with Stephen and Tamara Conway anytime at 3abnplus.tv or on our 3ABN Plus app for smartphones and tablets.
Discover the keys to healthier family relationships and better communication. Just visit 3abnplus.tv or download the app and search for When We Talk. Put your feet on the path to relationships like God intended them to be.
In Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6, the Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go, so that when they are old, they will not depart from it. You know, it brings to mind not only some of my blunders, unfortunately, but it brings to mind one of the strengths that my wife has, one of her many strengths, actually. We recently moved from a home that we were in for about 10 years. And as we were cleaning things up and getting ready for the removal of the final few objects, our oldest daughter disappeared. She was upstairs in her room, and my wife came upstairs and found her there. And she's like, hey, what's going on? What's wrong? Well, our daughter she was going through a process. And my wife was wise enough to be able to give her some time. And then later, as my wife and our daughter were speaking together, our daughter was sharing with my wife just how processing or thinking about not living in a place that she had lived in for 10 years, how much of a transition this was, the memories that were there in this home. And this was interesting because we were moving around a lot, but for whatever reason, we were in this one location for 10 years, which was a blessing. But even though it was a blessing, the change and the transition presented challenges. And I'm so thankful that my wife was wise enough to be able to just listen to our daughter as she shared what she was going through. So many of these types of things are overlooked, swept under the rug, but they resurface later on in life. Remember, train up children in the way that they should go and talk to them, because when we talk, we heal.